Good day, everyone. Today, I will be presenting about the International Regulations for Preventing Collisions at Sea 1972, commonly known as the COLREGs, with a main emphasis on Rule 8, which describes how vessels must take action to avoid collision. I will also explain how these rules are applied in Malaysian waters. The COLREGs 1972 were adopted during the 31st session of the Intergovernmental Maritime Consultative Organization, which we now know as the International Maritime Organization, or IMO. They replaced the older 1960 collision regulations because global shipping was growing rapidly, ships were becoming larger and faster, and navigation technology had developed significantly. The aim of the convention is to create a standard set of rules that mariners worldwide follow to prevent collisions at sea. These rules apply to all vessels on the high seas and in waters connected to the sea. Under Article 6 of the convention, the COLREGs enter into force 12 months after at least 15 states, representing at least 65% of the world's shipping tonnage or vessels above 100 GT, have ratified it. Although this requirement was met earlier, the convention could not legally enter into force before January 1, 1976. Eventually, the COLREGs took effect internationally on 15 July 1977. Malaysia ratified the COLREGs on December 23, 1980, and they came into force domestically on the same day. In Malaysia, enforcement is carried out through the Merchant Shipping Ordinance 1952, specifically Section 252, together with the Merchant Shipping, Collision Regulations, Order 1984. These laws give authority to port state control officers and surveyors of ships to examine ships, issue deficiency notices, verify the correct use of lights and shapes, and detain vessels that do not comply. Penalties and detentions help ensure that Malaysian waters follow internationally recognized navigation standards. Before a vessel can take action under Rule 8, it must first comply with several important rules. Rule 5 requires every vessel to maintain a proper lookout by sight, hearing, radar, AIS, and any other available means appropriate for the situation. Without a proper lookout, identifying collision risks early becomes impossible. Rule 6 requires vessels to proceed at a safe speed so they can take effective action to avoid collision and stop within an appropriate distance. Factors such as visibility, traffic density, maneuverability, background lights, sea conditions, wind, current, hazards, and draft must all be considered. Rule 7 requires vessels to determine whether a risk of collision exists using all available means. If there is any doubt, a risk must be assumed. Once these foundational requirements are met, the vessel applies Rule 8. In this rule, the convention explains exactly how a vessel must act when a risk of collision has been identified. Rule 8 Action to avoid collision. Any action to avoid collision shall be taken in accordance with the rules of this part and shall, if the circumstances of the case admit, be positive, made in ample time and with due regard to the observance of good seamanship. B. Any alteration of course and/or speed to avoid collision shall, if the circumstances of the case admit, be large enough to be readily apparent to another vessel observing visually or by radar. A succession of small alterations of course and/or speed should be avoided. C. If there is sufficient sea room, alteration of course alone may be the most effective action to avoid a close-quarters situation provided that it is made in good time, is substantial and does not result in another close-quarters situation. D. Action taken to avoid collision with another vessel shall be such as to result in passing at a safe distance. The effectiveness of the action shall be carefully checked until the other vessel is finally passed and clear. E. If necessary to avoid collision or allow more time to assess the situation, a vessel shall slacken her speed or take all way off by stopping or reversing her means of propulsion. F. A vessel which, by any of these rules, is required not to impede the passage or safe passage of another vessel shall, when required by the circumstances of the case, take early action to allow sufficient sea room for the safe passage of the other vessel. A vessel required not to impede the passage or safe passage of another vessel is not relieved of this obligation if approaching the other vessel so as to involve risk of collision and shall, when taking action, have full regard to the action which may be required by the rules of this part. A vessel the passage of which is not to be impeded remains fully obliged to comply with the rules of this part when the two vessels are approaching one another so as to involve risk of collision. This rule provides very clear guidance for navigators. For example, Rule 8b emphasizes that any alteration of course must be large and obvious, so that the other vessel can easily detect it visually or on radar. Minor adjustments should be avoided because they may not be noticed in time. Rule 8d reminds vessels to always ensure a safe passing distance, and to keep checking the effectiveness of their maneuver until the other vessel is completely passed and clear. This is especially important in busy waters such as the approaches to Port Penang, where traffic density is high and early, decisive actions are required. Although the focus today is on Rule 8, it is also important to understand how it works together with Rules 9 and 10. Under Rule 9, vessels navigating in a narrow channel must stay near the starboard side as much as possible. Smaller vessels under 20 meters and fishing vessels must avoid obstructing vessels that can only safely navigate within the channel. Even in a narrow channel, Rule 8 still applies, meaning a vessel must take early and substantial action when a risk of collision exists. Rule 10 addresses traffic separation schemes, which are especially important in high-traffic areas such as the Strait of Malacca and Port Klang. Vessels must follow the correct lane, move in the general traffic direction, and cross lanes at right angles. Separation zones should be avoided except in emergencies or special cases. Smaller vessels should avoid impeding larger power-driven vessels using the lane. These measures support the purpose of Rule 8 by reducing the chances of close-quarter situations. In conclusion, Rule 8 is one of the most important operational rules in the COLREGs because it explains how vessels must act when a risk of collision is detected. Its effectiveness depends on proper lookout, safe speed, and correct assessment of risk. The clear instructions in Rule 8 ensure that vessels take early, bold, and well-judged actions to prevent close-quarter situations. With Malaysia fully implementing the COLREGs, it is essential for all mariners to understand Rule 8 and apply it correctly when navigating at sea. Thank you.